Hello everyone, welcome back to the Cardman's Cards. I am the Cardman. Today we're going to be doing a very unique deck profile, or unique deck in general, however you want to word the damn thing. We're going to do a more recent TCG exclusive archetype, Tistina. They're a bunch of mid-range aqua monsters that vary in a bunch of levels. They're all different attributes. They range from wind, fire, water, earth, and they all vary in the level. There's a 3, 2, 1, 5, and a couple 10s. So, let's get started. I will say, these guys' cards effect are kinda all over the place. Kinda. The more you play with them, the more they make sense. Sorry for the random, knocking shit everywhere. Alright. First is the 3 Sentinel. Sentinel is your main starter, kinda. The deck's not the best. It needs a bit more support. But, for right now, Sentinel is your main starter. If you can get a better normal summon, you can. But for right now, he's the best. Due to the fact that whenever he is normal summoned, he has an on-field effect that you can target any face-down card you control or any Tistina card you control and destroy it. And if you do, you get to search for any Tistina card, which is good. But I will say one thing about this deck. It has a lot of searchability. So this is one of your main searchers. There's like 7 in the entire deck. So yeah, so that's Sentinel. Unfortunately, the other one that came out with Sentinel, Hound, he's not as good. You can run him as a 2. I run him as a 1 because I run a card that most people don't. Tainted, which I'll get to in here in a little bit. I also forgot to mention, both Hound and Sentinel have an additional effect. If these guys are in the grave, and you control a light Tistina, which there's 2 of, you can just summon these guys back from the grave for free, and they don't get banished during the end phase like some other cards, so which is good. But Hound here, he's normally a card you send off other card effects to the grave just to get him summoned back on as a free body. But when he is on the field, he has a continuous effect, lingering effect, that allows you to attack directly, your Tistina monsters to attack directly if your opponent has a face-down defense position card. Or, right? Yeah, face-down defense position monster. So he lets you hit for game and things along that nature. He's not as good. He's just a free body. I could see you running him as a 2 of if you don't want to run some of the other cards or lower the other amount of other things. Next up, he is Earth, so that's 2 of the attributes. Now we're going to move on to Fire. We have Returned. His name is kind of redundant, a little bit, but it makes sense when you explain what he does. He's level 2, Fire, Aqua, 500, 500. He's a good Aging Gear box target, which is kind of funny. But no, he can target any other Tistina monster you control except for itself. Summon this card, and if you do, it becomes that level. So he has level modulation. So any of the levels in the deck he can become. So he can become a 4, a 3, a 5, a 10. He can become any level you need. So some of the Ixies or links or whatever you want to run can easily manipulate to make certain engines work. In this case, I happen to run the train engine, which if you know what that is, this is really helpful for making your additional 10s. But in addition to that, if he's in the grave, which a lot of these cards have graveyard effects, just to mention, you can target an Aqua Ixie monster you control, and he can attach himself as material from the grave. So he's constantly going to be reattaching as a material for Aqua Ixies. This is good for the archetypal Ixie, Toad, anything like that, anything that's an Aqua Ixie. I can consider running Toad, but he's the only 2, so unless you want to play Toad and Bahamut Shark, I wouldn't worry about the Toad right now. Because the only other 4 you have is the Sentinel, so you'd either have to open 2 Returned, or open a Sentinel and then summon the Returned from the Sentinel to get 2 4s to summon Toad. But he can technically make Toad infinite. Your Toad is never going to run out of negates, because Toad is a detached Omni negate. But he can always reattach himself the following turn, so you're never going to run out of materials, which is good. So he's definitely helpful in that sense. Alright, we're going to move on to the field spell. Well, not necessarily a field spell, but monster who places field spell. This one's Aqua, level 1, Aqua, 2k0. The other ones are Earth, 1817's Hound, 18700, and then Sentinel is 1214, Wind, level 3. If I already mentioned those, sorry about that one. Alright, but we're going to move to Fallen. Fallen is your opener, I should say. You always want to end up seeing this guy or finding a way to get it if you can, because he's really good. He basically he plays around one of the most common hand traps right now, Ash. Ash is really good. It's always going to be good. It's a staple in pretty much every deck, including this one. Ash is just discard if your opponent adds, sends, or it adds the hand, add deck to hand, send from deck to grave. I forget the other one. Ash has a third condition too. You can just negate it by discarding it. It's one of the ghost scrolls. But he reads to place, not add. So he plays around Ash, which is great. Because now your main field spell, like the field spell you play with, oh shit, it's a field spell. But the field spell you're going to use can almost guaranteed hit the board due to Fallen. He has to fall to get the field spell going. But he has an additional effect as well. If he is in the graveyard and a Tistina spell or trap, I do believe. Yeah, Tistina spell or trap is destroyed by card effect. You can banish him and summon a Tistina from your hand or grave for free. Sorry, a light Tistina monster from your hand, deck, or grave for free. So he basically gives you your bigger monsters for free whenever your cards are destroyed, which is really handy. Next up, we have Tainted. Tainted is one most people don't play. Most people play a second Hound instead of this. But I like Tainted. No one seems to like him. He's Dark level 5, 2k0. But it's a really interesting effect. You can target one of your opponent's face-down monsters, tribute that monster to summon this, and if you do, he becomes level 10. Again, this deck likes 10s if you couldn't tell. But he has a second effect if he leaves the field other than being sent to the grave. So like detached from an Ixie, off a card effect from the deck, things like that. He can target a Tistina monster you control, and it gains a second attack, which is really good for the Ixie, because the Ixie has an effect that it can make itself go to 4,000 attack, and then you can poke your opponent for game by using this guy to make it attack twice. Not a lot of people run this. I don't understand why. It makes closing games really easy. I can understand if you're running a second engine in this deck, like you're going to play some more of the Toads, you can get rid of this. But just for pure Tistina, this guy is surprisingly slept on for running. He's a brick in the opening hand and kind of dead, but if you can search him later on, he can win you games. I've won many games because of this guy, and I lost a few because I didn't have him in during game 2s and stuff when I signed it out. If you didn't notice, a lot of the card effects revolve around flipping or the face-down defense monsters because the main two big boss monsters of the deck, one being Demigod and one being Crystal God of the Tistina, they have effects that flip your opponent's monsters face down and send all our face-up cards to the grave. If you are familiar with the trap card Destructive Karma Cannon, it's the same thing but as a deck. Now we're going to move to, speaking of Demigod, we have Demigod. Demigod is a level 10 light, 2k0, Aqua effect. Demigod is one of your main combo pieces you always end up seeing. He's normally searched off a couple of your spells and things of that nature. But the great thing about him is a lot of your Tistina cards are continuous or going to be on the field for a while. And he can summon himself from the hand for free if you control a Tistina card. It doesn't matter which one. The field spell, a continuous, a monster, you name it. As long as there's a Tistina card in the field, he can summon himself for free. And if he does, he's a guaranteed add of a spell or trap, which is good because they have some utility spell and traps that you would like to see if you can. This is all in one effect, which is good and also bad. It's good that if he hits the field, you're guaranteed the add, but since it's all one effect, they can ash it and you don't get the extra body, which stinks. But due to once he is on the field, he has a quick effect on your opponent's turn, if you control Crystal God, you can flip all your opponent's monsters face down and send all their face-up cards to the grave. So he gets rid of links, gets rid of continuous field spells, continuous traps, anything along that nature. So he really helps out getting rid of your opponent's face-up cards, putting everything else face down for you. And we move on to the God itself, Crystal God. Crystal God is another level 10 light Aqua monster, 2k, 3k, big defense body. Crystal God is your main boss monster. It's a little hard to get out due to it having a high level, not having a free summon. It kind of does with the field spell, but the field spell takes a little bit of setup to get that off. So most times I end up putting this in my own grave to summon it back off another card of the archetype. But Crystal God is your main archetypal boss monster for the main deck at least. And Crystal God has basically the same effect, but twice. It can flip all of their face down, flip all monsters your opponent controls face down, and then send all their face up cards to the grave. Same thing as the quick effect for Demigod, but again, you have to control Crystal God for Demigod effect. But in addition to that, it has a destruction effect. Destruction doesn't matter how. Card effect by battle, it do not matter. But if he's destroyed by any means, you get a guaranteed trigger of his effect, which is flipping all monsters your opponent controls face down and send all their face up cards to the grave. So no matter what this card does, if it's destroyed, if it activates its actual effect, as long as it does something, you're guaranteed to flip your opponent's monsters face down, which is great because that's how the deck wants to work. Other than that, it's kind of a pain. You only run on 2 of it because it is a bit of a brick. If you open it, it's okay if you get the field spell active fast enough. But if not, it's just kind of a dead card, sadly. But it's a really good card if you can get going. Alright, now we're going to move into the spells. First up, we're going to start with their field spell. Again, which is a 2 of. Not mainly because it's a bad field spell or anything. It's just, there's so many ways to get it. We're either drawing it, using Fallen with it, searching it off of other names, because it's just... And anytime you search a Tistina card, you can add the field spell. There's a bunch of ways to get this card, so you don't necessarily need to run a lot of it, as you can run other things instead. But it's Divine Domain by Tistina. It's a field spell. During the main phase, you can send one Tistina monster from the grave, from your deck to grave. As I said, this deck likes to send stuff to grave, as some of your monsters have a lot of effects in the graveyard. But if you do, and your opponent controls 3 or more monsters, you can summon Crystal God for free from the hand or deck, which is great. This is what I'm saying about how you can cheese Crystal God out a little bit, but you have to opponent monster has 3 face-up cards, which kind of stinks, because it basically forces you to go second, but if your opponent doesn't have an interruption, you could easily OTK them with the Tainted and all that jazz. But it also has a destruction effect. If this card is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can summon a Tistina monster from your deck or grave. So this really works well with Fallen, because if they destroy this and Fallen both activate, giving you another pair of monsters to work with. And if you can summon back Crystal God and Demigod again, you have a guaranteed board flip on your opponent's turn automatically once these 2 are destroyed. This has won me games because of people blowing up my cards and not realizing it. We're going to move on to the quick play. This is Play of the Tistina. I run 3 of it because I just find 3 helpful. I'm thinking about reducing it to 2, just because you can search it a lot. You necessarily don't need 3, possibly changing for another hound, another hand trap you feel like, whatever you feel like. But it's very good. I mentioned about dumping Crystal God to the grave with the field spell, but this is how you get them out of the grave. Play allows you to special summon 1 Tistina monster from your hand or grave in defense position, but then return it to the hand during the end phase. You can only activate 1 play per turn, but it's a quick play, so you can use this on your opponent's turn. So you can use your turn to summon up Demigod, and then send your Crystal God off of Divine Domain, and then summon it back to your opponent's turn, and then use Demigod's effect to flip your opponent's board face down and send all their face-up cards. So very helpful. You can also get your plays going again if your opponent breaks your board. And then we're going to have probably one of the best cards in the entire deck, Breath. Breath of Tistina is a continuous spell. It's the main spell you're going to be going after first, other than field spell, just because it does so much for you. It gives you additional normal summon of Tistina monster, which is very helpful. And then you can target a Tistina monster you control, or a monster opponent controls if you control a light Tistina, which is really good. Allows you to set up for Tainted really easily. And then if you do, you can search any Tistina card you want, which is amazing. It does not have any destruction effects, though, but for all that it does on the field, if it did, it'd be kind of nuts. So it allows you to search at least one extra card while also putting itself on the field for Demigod's effect. So this is a guaranteed Demigod searcher. Because if this hits the field and you can flip anything else, you guarantee Demigod, because it's still in a Tistina name, on the field, and Demigod can add anything else you want. It's very good. Allows you to open up your hands more. Dead hands don't seem as bad with this. Especially if you run any kind of engine. Say, for example, you want to run like a Swap Frog or anything like that. You can normal summon with your normal summon, and then if you have Breath on the field, you can just normal summon your Sentinel or whatever else by using its additional normal summon, which is really good. This is why I could definitely say running a different engine in here to make the deck a little bit more playable. We're going to go into the traps. There is a third trap. It's called Signs. It just gives you a free trap monster. It's okay. It gives you another level 10 light monster, so technically works in that sense. It's just really slow and hard to get off. But the two traps I do run, we'll start with this one. Discordance of the Tistina. It's good. People sometimes run this as a 2 of. I could definitely see it as a 2 of. If you want to drop play down to 2, run this at 2. Just because it's effective at what it does. If you control a Tistina monster, you can target one card in your opponent's grave, banish it. But that's not the real thing you're coming this for. If you control a Tistina monster from the extra deck, however, you can banish your opponent's entire graveyard, which is nuts. Especially after you send their entire field to the grave, which I'll get to here in a minute. But it also has a graveyard effect. A lot of these cards have graveyard effects, if you didn't realize. You can banish this and add any Tistina Tistina monster from your grave to hand to let you basically play again on your opponent's turn if you need effects to activate. Say that you want to normal summon Sentinel again to get both of its effects off without having to worry about bodies on board. This is a good way to do it. So some people run 2, one just to kind of destroy and one kind of actually use for searching. The second one is another one of, it's a continuous, well, better. Embrace of the Tistina. When your opponent activates a monster effect on the field, you can target that monster, change it to face down defensive position. During the end phase, you can target one face down defensive position monster your opponent controls, and take it. They control that monster. You can only use each effect of Embrace the Tistina once per turn, and only activate them while you control Tistina monster with 3k or more defense, which is kind of annoying, but I get why. They're very powerful effects, allowing you to book a moon in your opponent's monster, in addition to taking a monster if there is one face down. This really works well with Crystal God and the Ixie we will be getting to here in a little bit. It's a bit slower. I can definitely see some people not seeing this, but it's more interruption on your opponent's turn. So if they're trying to Synchro or Ixie or Link, any of those summoning mechanics, this stops them because they can't go into their extra deck due to the fact that they don't have face-up monsters, which is good. But if you're going against fusions or rituals, this doesn't really do much because they can just fusion with face-down monsters, which it stinks on that front. Now we're going to get into some of the additional cards that you can play. You don't have to run these, but I find them helpful. The first one would be, as you can probably read, Book of Eclipse. You can run Book of Moon too, if you like. I just don't have any right now, because Book of Moon is one monster. I could definitely say running Book of Moon over this if you don't want to give your opponent a bunch of advantage. Because Book of Eclipse, it flips all monsters face down, and then on the end phase, flip all monsters face back up and face up defense position, and then your opponent draws equal to the number of monsters they flipped up. So this is very good to activate on your turn to get their entire board face down for your effects already. I could definitely see putting this to 2 and maybe throwing a couple Book of Moons in with some other stuff. It's helpful, but it has caused me some losses with the additional draws my opponent gets off of it. It's very good to save yourself from dying, though, so another use for it. It's helpful, but I can definitely see using something else. Next up, we have draw cards. You can search a lot, but you need to draw a lot as well. We have Pot of Extravagance. You can use Prosperity if you like. It's overall the better choice. I just don't have any at the moment. But Pot of Extravagance lets you banish 3 or 6 cards from the extra deck, which you don't use a whole lot, so that's fine. From your extra deck, and then if you do, you can draw a card for every 3 you banish. So you basically just want to pop this off, draw 2 cards, and then hopefully draw more cards to your combo, which is very helpful. Next is your typical one of Called by the Grave. If you're not running a Called by the Grave in your main deck, if you can afford to, I don't know why you don't. It's good. It stops hand traps. It's a very good one of. It's so good, I wish it came back to 2, but I understand why it's not at 2, because Called by the Grave lingers for 2 turns. So say your opponent hand traps you on their turn, they can't hand trap you on your turn again, which is good, because Called by the Grave, target one monster in your opponent's graveyard, banish it, and if you do, till the end of the next turn, its effects are negated as well. The activation effects on the field with monsters with this same original name. So really works well, good against hand traps or monsters your opponents like to spam. If you guys know Super Heavy Samurais and their abuse of their 1 card Soul Piercer, you can definitely just banish their Piercer and they just kind of cry. Because they really can't do anything, because Piercer is their main combo searcher. It adds any Super Heavy Samurai monster. So, but things of that nature, this is very good for. I would recommend running Called in basically every deck you can. Some decks you can't because they don't have the room for it, but it's very good. Next up, I only 2 Ash, just because you need the room for some of your main deck monsters. I could see changing out some of the cards to run a 3rd Ash, but I'm only running 2 right now. 3 Veiler, just for monster effect negation. Some people would say, oh, run Droll, run this and that. But I will say this. I own Droll. I've played Droll. Droll don't work. I've had matchups where it's like, oh yeah, Droll's the card that kills that deck. I've used it, and it did nothing. Because they had nuts hands, and so I don't like Droll. I just feel that I never see it when I need to, and when I do see it, it doesn't do anything. But monster effect negation's always good, no matter when you see it. So I feel running Veilers instead of Droll, for me personally, is better. If you want to run Droll, Ghost Belt, whatever you feel like, you can. But for me personally, I would say Veiler is the better option, just because I never see Droll when I need it. For example, last week at my locals I go to, I drolled my opponent. I couldn't play because my hand was completely gross and dead. He couldn't play, but on the pass back from my turn, he could do perfectly everything, and then I lost because of it. But yeah, Droll for me just does nothing. Droll's a good card, don't get me wrong. It's just I never see it when I need it, so I just don't use it. Last one is just more monster interruption. Is Infinite Impermanence. Great staple, got reprinted recently. If you don't know what Imperm does, it's Veiler, but more. If you control no cards, correct? Yeah, if you control no cards, you can activate this card from the hand. So basically, it's another literal hand trap. But if you set it, when you activate it, the same column, the spell and trap zone in that column, is technically turned off for the turn. So you can strategically place this in columns that your opponent places their continuous spells or traps and stuff in to stop them from activating them. So say like your opponent activates like, I don't know, a big welcome or something. You can stop the big welcome by negating a monster on the field and Imperm turning off that column, which is really helpful. I could definitely say you can change this. There is a couple other cards you can put in here, which I would recommend. I just don't have them right now, which is the Armored Ixie Engine. They have two to three extra deck monsters and 1 index slot if you're so concerned. But they allow you to do what you want to do on your opponent's turn as well, making the deck a little better. I just haven't found the need for them yet, but I definitely will probably get them eventually. Not sure when, but eventually. Other than that, the main deck is good. We're going to move on to the extra deck. And then we're going to start with the Tistina extra deck monster. Tistina, the divinity that fights the darkness. This guy is rank 10, not level 10. Rank 10, light 2k, 3k, Aqua of Ixie effect monster. It might look a little weak, but it's not, because it can go up. Whenever this is summoned, send all face-down cards your opponent controls to the grave, no matter what they are. Trap, monster, spell, anything that's set face down, go bye-bye. Which is good, because you set things, you put your opponent's monsters face down normally with your other card effects, which is really good. So this is just easy board wipe for you. And what's beneficial, and also kind of a detriment depending on who you're playing, is that it sends, not destroys. So cards that want to be destroyed don't activate because of this. But cards that want to be sent do, unfortunately. So that's one of the give and take with this card. But normally you understand that and you try to play around it and just go for the kill with this. But as I said, if it has Crystal God as material, you can detach a material in this card, make it gain a 2,000 attack until the end of your opponent's turn. So you can make this guy go from 2 to 4k, and then if you have Tainted, or another way to make it have a double attack, you can attack twice, and killing your opponent right then and there. Some other utility cards, I'm running a number XX Utopic Dark Infinity. This is mainly for time shenanigans. Because say you burn for some reason, you can target any other extra summoned monster from your extra deck, and then gain life points equal to it is. It also has a battle destroyed by battle effect, and sent to the graveyard. You can detach one material from this card and then target one monster. So it allows you to get more bodies on board. Also, just allows you to recover your life points in time if it's an absolute necessity. The deck makes 10s relatively simple, so it's no big deal. I'm not sure if you mentioned, I run 2 of these guys. You can run a third. You probably should if you're running extras, but I'm an idiot, so run 3 if you're running extras. 2 if you have desires, because you can banish whatever you want with, not desires, prosperity. That's the one. 3 Gustav Max, just because trains in this extra deck are really helpful. They're just really good generic 10s that can give you OTK potential really easily, especially if your opponent has a bunch of monsters. Because this guy burns your opponent for 2,000 damage, which is great. And on top of that, they have another one, Leap, which allows you to attack multiple times with high numbers. 2 Dora, just for your defensive play. Dora has a quick effect. You can detach target a monster in your control. It can't be affected by card effects on the end of the turn. So Dora is just a very defensive one. He's 32, 4k, so very big, very beefy. And then 2 Lieb, this is the other one I was mentioning. Gustav Lieb, you can detach 1 material from him, and then he goes up to 6k, which he already has 4,000. So he's 6'6". On top of that, he gains attack equal to the number of materials he has, which should be 1, so you get 2 attacks, because he gains attacks equal to the number of materials plus 1. So he's always going to gain at least 1 attack when you use him. So 2 big attacks on monsters is pretty much guaranteed the game, because you already dealt 2,000 to your opponent. So if you can at least do another 6, which he should be able to, you pretty much win, which is good. Here's some links just for some notoriety, I guess, just from extra utility cards, because you do have free bodies in the way of Hound and Sentinel that you can summon freely almost every turn. Boral Sword, just big length 4 boss monster, helps you end games and close out things. Cannot be destroyed by card effect once per turn. Destroyed by battle. Quick effect. If you target one face-up monster changes defense, then this card can make a second attack. And it's just good for ending the game. 1 Unicorn, just for spinning stuff. If you have a second one, I could definitely say playing a second one, just because you're running extras, of course. Then 2 Phoenix, just to pop cards, because the deck kinda has a hard time with floodgates. Depending on which floodgate. Gozen hurts them, Tikaboo hurts them. This is just a good way to get some of the other ones out, because you do run, just to get rid of over stuff. Other than that, that's pretty much it. Like I said, there is the Xyz's Armored engine, which you can throw in here, which has a rank 3 and a rank 5. The rank 3 allows you to detach 2 materials from it, draw a card, which is great, just gives you more hand cards. And the 5 allows you to search for their trap, which allows you to Ixie someone on your opponent's turn if you have an Ixie on the field, which you should as the rank 5. But the main reason that is so you can go into Tistina, the Divinity that Defies the Darkness, and send your opponent's entire board away on their turn, which is basically game ending. I just haven't picked them up yet. I probably will. If I do, I might make another video about going over them. But until then, I do believe that is it for now. I will be making a video for combos or minor combos that the deck, well, at least the pure version, should look forward to. Till then, this was the Tistina deck. They're very flip heavy. You want to put your monster's face down. It's kind of like Ghost Trick, but a little bit better. And other than that, this is the Cardsman cards. I'm the Cardman. Keep collecting.